Hey, y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we get a little break from the Breeders' Cup fray this weekend, but we do have the Maryland Million, which is a series of stakes race at Laurel, and it looks pretty good. There's some really diverse fields, and we're going to take a look at the late pick five because I think it's got some pretty good offerings, a lot of value to be had, so let's get into it. So this is the Maryland Million late pick five. It comprises races 8 through 12. And leg one is race 8. It's the Maryland Million Turf Sprint, ungraded at 100,000 for 5.5 furlongs on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And you can see it is a very full field, and we've got a lot of horses up on the engine early. I don't see a confirmed front runner necessarily in this group, although Commanding General will probably be best suited trying to get to the lead. However, being in the 11 hole, I don't think that's a likelihood, and probably is going to be very compromised by the post position. From this group, Coming Storm looks to be the one that more than likely can get a good tactical position and get right up on the engine, which might be a good place to be in this race. He's coming off an allowance effort that I thought was very solid, and this one is poised, I think, to make another move forward, which he would need definitely to be a win candidate here, but tactically should be able to get in really good position, and from there, if he's good enough, he has a chance. We do have also eligibles in this group. Back in the Woods is one coming in third off the layoff and had a nice effort last time. It's logical to expect that the third one in the cycle will be solid. Will be on the outside. That's going to be a big challenge, but as we know, we always got to pay attention to the AEs. There's usually a reason they really want to get him in the race. So Back in the Woods, perhaps one to consider if he draws in. Tidewater is a 3-year-old, seemingly making a nice progression and looks to have a good race in the offing coming up, coming off a nice win. Is definitely going to have to move forward, but tactically being on or near the rail is going to be able to save some ground, and if he can work out a trip with another move forward, has a really good chance in this race. Synergy Stars coming off an allowance effort that I thought was pretty solid, and again is in the cycle looking to move forward, and I think is ready to run a good race. I think the prime 2 win candidates would be Skies Not Falling and Witty. They both came out of the last race was an ungraded stakes, and they both ran very well. I thought Skies Not Falling had an excellent trip, being just saving ground, staying up near the rail, and then making the right move. Jockey gave a nice ride and just missed against Witty. And so tactically, Skies Not Falling maybe has a little bit of an edge, and will have to work out a trip, as they all will in this race. But Skies Not Falling maybe have a little bit of an edge, just being a little more forwardly placed. Witty is a closer, but maybe not completely all the way at the back deep, maybe a little more forwardly placed than that. I did notice that this one is not necessarily pace dependent, has run against slow fractions and quick ones and won either way. So I think would have to be considered the prime win candidate here. Being a big field is going to have to, split the wickets more than one time, and likely coming from the back. But I think has a pretty good chance to win this race, and looks to be in excellent form. Leg 2 is race 9. It's the Maryland Million Nursery Stakes. It's ungraded at 100,000, and it's run at 6 furlongs for 2-year-olds. And this race is a big field again, but you'd have to say most of these are coming from maiden claiming ranks. Either they just won a maiden claimer, and really the determinant is going to be speed here, because many of these aren't up to snuff, aren't even close to the par. And so particularly when it comes to the early runners, I think a lot of these will be, could, because this is what they've been doing. They'll try to get to the lead, but they'll be backing up. It could create quite a logjam on the front end. Of the ones on the early end, I think Kings River makes the most sense. Linda Albert is having a really big meet so far. Small sample size, but she's 2 out of 3. She's got her A jockey on this one. And while it wasn't maiden 20, this one wired the field pretty well, pretty convincingly. Leads me to believe that there's more in the tank. And basically, because it's a hot barn, I'm keeping it. Not overly confident this one can wire this field, but I think is worthy of a consideration. Kohler's has the speed edge over all of them. However, I did note in the last race it was in the mud, and it was a little disappointment off of a pretty solid maiden win. And one thing I did note was, and you'll see the little note of the F by Kohler's name, he was wearing front wraps, and so there may have been some issue that we weren't aware of when he ran the race. So I would watch in the paddock to see if he's still wearing front wraps. I maybe would downgrade him a little bit, but if he doesn't have them, I would consider that to be a really good sign, and he would be a prime win contender. Prado Road is won by Brittany Russell, and she's got her husband Sheldon Russell aboard. That's a lights out pairing. Brittany Russell's a phenomenal trainer. She's great with 2-year-olds, and this one has the look of one that will definitely move forward here. So I think, especially coming from off the pace, is a good candidate. Probably going to get the jump on maybe some of the other later runners. And then Call Me Andy is also eligible. If he draws in, I think he's one you want to think about. Trained by Brendan Walsh, looks to be progressing, and would be one you'd want to consider. It's going to be tough from the 13 hole or however far out, especially in this field with all the early speed. But I think is one that we have to think about. Catahoula Moon, to me, would be the one I would pick to win this race. Number one, tactically is going to be able to lay off all of that big pace. And secondly, this one has been steadily improving and at class levels a lot higher than most of these. And so I think this one is battle tested, looks to have a move forward in him. And I think tactically is in the really best position to win this. So if I had to pick one to be on top here, it would definitely be Catahoula Moon, and Cole is probably following. If there are no front wraps, would be the other two prime. They'd be the two prime win candidates here. Leg 3 is race 10. It's the Maryland Millions Distaff, ungraded at 100,000. Run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And this race is really interesting that you got a lot of horses for courses in here, and a lot of horses who really like 7 furlongs, and that's unusual. Usually you get 1, maybe 2, but there are several in here that this is a preferred distance for them, so it makes for a really competitive race, I think. From the ease, Moon Boons would be token speed in this, and I don't think will last very long. Probably going to give response time a little bit of a scare for a little while, but I don't expect a factor in this race. Response time would be a strong candidate in this race, but in looking at her PPs going back, she's only been off the bench a couple of times, and both times she was a little subpar. So going into this race, coming off the bench in a stakes race, not coming in, probably not going to run as good a race as she can, then I'm not going to consider her, although I think she will be the controlling pace, but I don't expect her to hang in there given her history off the bench. From the pace presses, Field d'Esprit is a horse for the course and then some. She's got 13 wins at Laurel and is 7 out of 8 in the money at 7 furlongs. Won this race last year, is coming in second off the layoff, and I think is ready to roll, and has no sign to slowing down at 7 years old. Really strong candidate to win this race. Marvelous is coming out of a key race where she did something that, and has been for the last couple starts, that's really shows a lot of improvement, and there's more to come perhaps. She is listed as a closer and did a lot of her running early on from behind, but has been closer to the pace lately, and in particular in her last race. There were only 5 horses in the race, and closers usually lose out in races like that because they're taken out of their game. They have to get up closer to the pace, and it just usually doesn't work out for them. But Marvelous was able to mount a really strong rating, and I think she'll probably do more of the same here. She's going to have to step it up a little bit to compete with this salty bunch, but it seems showing signs that she is improving. And again, another one who likes the distance.
I think maybe one to consider at a price. Mama's G's Wish is going to have to step it up, but she's 2 out of 3 at 7 furlongs, and another one that likes Laurel. She'll have to give her level best in this, probably a little better than she normally runs, but maybe one you want to think about under for her preference for the distance. Malibu Moonshine needs pace to run to. Not sure she's going to get it here. Um, Her last race was relatively disappointing, you'd have to say. She was way back from the clouds and mounted a run, but then flattened out late. Uh, I think they've given her a little bit of a freshening since then, but if she comes back to her normal game, she would definitely be one to consider because another one who really likes 7 furlongs. I'm just not sure she's going to be at her level best, and I'm not sure the scenario is going to be good for her, but I think it's one you have to consider. And then Lulu Bell is been off for a year and 3 months, but prior to that, she was a world beater and would be very strong if she can come back to her prior form in this race. It's a tall order, but I think if she her tab looks like she's ready to roll. She's been firing bullets, and I think is one you definitely have to keep in the mix. But it is a tall order coming in to an ungraded stakes race after such a long layoff. But that does show a lot of confidence from the trainer. And then finally, there are from the also eligibles, Intrepid Daydream, I think is definitely one that we have to consider. She'd be going for her third straight win and looks in top form. So if she draws in the race, this is definitely one that you want to think about. Leg 4 is race 11. It's the Maryland Million Classic at 150K, ungraded stakes, running a mile and an eighth for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a pretty balanced field, I'd say. If you look, there are a few early runners. However, looking at them, you might expect that we're going to have a real hot pace, and the pace might be fairly lively, but really the issue more than anything else is 3 out of the 4 really aren't in the best of form, I didn't think, in looking at their PPs. The one that I thought did have decent form was all threes. And so I think that he will likely be the controlling pace in here, and I think has the numbers to figure in this field. With the others being a little on the off form, then perhaps he will be able to get on a control this field and wire it. The horses behind him are a little on the suspect side as well. So this looks to me like a race that sets up pretty well for a wire job, and I think all threes of the candidates is the best one to do it. Delicia Vita is seems to be on the upswing. I think it's a cut below, but there's a lot of horses in here that seem to be off form, and for that reason, I think we can upgrade some that maybe on paper don't look quite as capable as others, but if their form is better, then that lifts them up. So I think Delicia Vita might just be one of those. Uh, Double Crown, the closer, the Lincash former trainee, who used to run him every couple of weeks. As long as Double Crown stays out of graded stakes company, I think he's okay. And this is a field that he fits with, and certainly if he seems to be in pretty good form. So if he, having won his last race, was an ungraded stakes, if he, so I think he'll factor in this race. However, I'm not so sure there's going to be pace for him to run to, but I think he's one that you definitely have to include. Super Accelerate is one that is another one in good form, but I do question whether this one can get uh, a mile and an eighth. I think that might be the pedigree doesn't really scream it. That's and For that reason, I think this one has got some talent. Perhaps in this field with a few of these being, like I say, not in the best of form, maybe that super accelerate gets elevated a little bit. So if he draws in, maybe one to consider. Big Blue Line, I like a lot in this race, and if he can draw in, obviously we're going to have need a lot of defections, but he looks to me like one that has all the tools to win a race like this. The fifth and final leg of the Maryland Million Late Pick 5 is the 12th race. It's the Maryland Million Turf Starter Handicap at 50,000 ungraded. It's at a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And class is the determinant in this one. It's a big field, and we have to separate them by those that have run in better classes. Imagine it all. He's coming from a hot barn. Sam Davis is 2 out of 3 in a small sample size, but obviously his barn is going well. In the last, he was in the last couple. He's been in good class optional claimers, and he's the only one that I think is likely to get the lead. The 14th hole is a challenge, but as a controlling speed, he does have a chance. He faded in his last race, tried to do so to get up on the lead, but it was a pretty good race. So with a little class relief here, maybe he has a chance to get up on top and take it all. Looking for Justice would be another one who probably will want to get up on the lead if he draws in. The post is an issue, of course, but he comes out of a good optional claimer, albeit on dirt, but his turf form is good, so or decent. So, I mean, I think we can consider him a contender here if he draws in. Brilliant Chase was solid in his last at a much higher class, 25K optional claimer, and it was on dirt, but he's run figures in the past that would win this, and the last 2 turf efforts were solid. And I think speed figure wise, he's got quite an edge over a lot of these in here. Nick Papagiorgio has a couple of decent seconds and good claimers, and I think that makes him a prime contender here. He rallied wide in his last, so a ground-saving trip would definitely enhance his chances, and he should be just off the pace, giving him a jump on a lot of the others, so I consider him to be a prime win candidate as well. Boppo Kid is in a good race, bad race pattern with a good one on the docket for the next one, so he's likely to run a pretty good race. Now, he's going to need his best here, so likely he would be an under possibility, but I think he could be factoring late. Bonded has a hot jockey in Forrest Boyce. Was winning at 31%, and it's not his normal rider, so I'd consider that to be a really good sign. He's running good class races, including the last one where he had a ground-saving trip, but he kept on well in the stretch, so the class relief that he gets to a degree here should help him, and as a 3-year-old, he's capable of moving forward. Jackie A is another also eligible. He's got Victor Carrasco, who's a good turf rider aboard, and again has been running in better races, but likely he's probably going to be more under as a candidate. He's left unprotected in his last, so a good effort really isn't that certain, so I'd consider under to be more likely, but this is a big field, and I consider this to be a wide open race, just trying to focus in on the ones that have a bit of a class edge, and I think that's going to make the difference here. So here's what our ticket looks like for the Late Pick 5 Maryland Million. Leg 1, Race 8, we're going to use 3, 5, and 9. Leg 2, Race 9, we're going to use 4, 6, and 12. And watch for the front wraps on Kohlers, or try to, if you can get an indication about that before you place your ticket. I think that's really important. And Leg 3, Race 10, we're going to use 2, 3, and 10. And if the 11 draws in, I would definitely use. Leg 4, Race 11, we're going to use 2 and 6. And again, if the 11 draws in, big blue line, I really like in that race. So if he draws in, I think he's a definite win candidate. And then Leg 5, Race 12, we're going to use 3, 7, 9. So that's 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 2 is 54, times 3 is 162. That's an $81 ticket at a 50-cent base. So that's the Maryland Million Late Pick 5. It's a pretty challenging sequence, I think. It's hard to pin down anybody for a single, for sure. And so you've got some nice value that I think is available in all the races. And, I will apologize. I didn't have the odds for the first 4, so they weren't posted. And I'm sorry about that. They're available now if you want to take a look at them. But hope our analysis helps you, and I wish you the best of luck as always. Hopefully we'll do as well as we did in the Breeders' Cup Pick 6. Took that one down. That was nice. and hope you had that as well. We will continue with our postings as we move our way to the Breeders' Cup, and we'll have our scouting reports for each individual race, and we'll break down all the contenders individually. So be on the lookout for that. That's it for today. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.